evaluate it for me. So really all it's eval, go over to that options page. Okay. We go over to the report. Now we can see my salesperson code says options D4, but my posting date says NP eval options D3. What is that truly doing? To do that, I have to put in this keyword. So let's take a look.
Why did you add the plus values?
We will talk about that momentarily, but in order to show you what's happening, I have to add that in. That'll be it. So here I've got options D5. Here I've got options D4. I no longer have NP eval options D3. I no longer have options D3. It's just that value. Now you may still see NP eval. The reason for that is because I added a keyword. It's one of these keywords we'll talk about. It's the final step of our development. But in order to show you what's happening, I needed to do that. So let's go ahead and add our NP eval for salesperson code and document type as well. So again, we'll do our salesperson code, our NP.
And you're doing these on the report, not the options.
We're doing this on the report page. Yep. Because what we want to do is we want to go over to that options page, find that value and bring it over onto the report page and store it there. So for my salesperson code, it says eval and go to options D4. My document type, I'll do the same thing. Eval, options, D5. So once you have that in place, if you click on any one of your options on your report page, it should say NP eval with a reference to your options page.
I don't like that it leaves you on your options.
Yeah, me
That's kind of annoying.
It's like it should return us back to where we were.
Exactly.
I'll tell the developers.
Please.
If you ever think of something that you would like to see in JET, we actually do on our message board have a suggested, requested things you'd like to see, and our developers do read them. So anytime I have a client who's like, it'd be really nice to see this, and like, I can tell the developers, they don't care. They hear from the customers enough, they'll try and implement it. So if you ever think of something, wouldn't it be nice if I could do this or that? Post it on our message boards and they'll read it. Okay. So once you have those, go ahead and hit run your report. Now we should have an options page and a report page showing, right? That option page is really just for us, for coding, to create that little pop-up tab. I don't want our viewers to have to look at that, nor do I want them going over there and going, ooh, what's this? And fiddling around with it. Not that it matters. Yep.
Can I see your report?
Yeah, let's go back to the
My
report.
report looks different. Customer name. Oh. I think I erased the customer name column. That's why it looks
Yeah.
so different.
Yeah, it's just you have the customer number without the customer name.
Okay. I guess I just.
Yeah.
Or I didn't do it, or I erased it.
Yeah. You just know your customer number so well that you don't need that stinking name. Alright, so we've got this options page. We don't want it there. Let's go back into design mode. We're going to add a new JET keyword. This is where we really kind of start talking about all the keywords. On our options tab in cell A1, we've got auto plus hide. Let's append to that plus hide sheet, all one word. So now it should say auto plus hide sheet, all one word. For reference, the NP eval you can find on page 430, just so you know it's there. And the, let's see, hide sheet, oh, it's in here somewhere, where are you? Is on page 428. And 428 also shows you how to select multiple values. That we did show the salesperson code, the name, all that stuff. All right, so once you add that hide sheet, if you rerun the report, you should now see that your options tab is gone. So any sheet in your workbook that you don't want your viewers to be able to see, you add that hide sheet. I have people that do that so they have all their data mining on all these sheets, and then they have a summarization tab. It's all VLOOKUPs that they look back at those ones and they hide all those data tabs. Here's a summarization of it. Just look at that. Mostly, I see it used for that options page. We just hide that sheet. There's no reason for them to see it. No reason for them to fiddle around with it. Like I said, so close to the end here. There's one last step, and you saw me do it already. We have to add one more keyword to our report page or any page that has JET functionality. One of two. I can either add plus values or I can add plus lock. What do these do? This is what allows JET viewers and non-JET folk to be able to read our reports. If I leave off the plus values and I run my report, I click on this and I see equals NL rows equals 4, etc., etc. Well, JET viewers don't have access to these functions. They don't have permission to use them, but here it is in the report. People that don't have JET installed, it's going to say equals NL. What in the world are you talking about? That's not even an Excel function. Right? So we needed a way to compensate for that. So we came up with the plus values, plural. Now when I run my report, I can click on any one of these cells, and anything that was a JET function is now just the value it evaluated out to. Anything that's Excel remains, right? My subtotal remains. My total commission calculation remains. But everything else is now just the value it evaluates out to. This is why I can take this report, send it to somebody who has just Excel installed, and they'll be able to read it. Now, people were concerned about, I don't want people to modify my data. I don't want somebody to come in and actually go, oops, sorry, I broke your report. I just deleted a whole bunch of stuff. Well, the good news is, refresh. It comes right back. Or if somebody tries to say, oh, well, for England's here, I sold $10 million worth of stuff, so I get $500,000 in commission. No, you don't. You get your $33. Because it's going back and rerunning those queries. So even if somebody messes with the report, you just rerun it and it fixes it. But some people don't want people fiddling with it at all, so that's why we have the other plus lock. Auto plus hide plus lock means now when I run this report, it'll convert those values, those functions to the values, and lock the report. People can still JET viewers can still refresh the report with these values that we say, hey, you're allowed to change the posting date, you're allowed to change that salesperson code. But they can't modify or touch or do anything with this report. It's locked down. Now, this will not prevent other designers from going in and messing with your stuff, because they can easily say, ha ha ha, I'm going to go back into design, and they can mess with your report. So we were discussing this earlier. If you truly want to lock down your report, you've got to use Excel, lock down your workbook with a password. So I think you guys are going to come up with some sort of process to do that. But for your own reports, if it's just for you, do you really need to lock it down? Probably not. So that's the very last step. The nice thing is if I forget to add auto plus hide plus lock or plus values, and I send it off to a viewer, here's what's going to happen. This is a lot of times the last thing I do because I always forget. I can simulate being a viewer, and I can try and run that report, and I get a little error message. It says, hey, you're not licensed to design reports, because all of a sudden it says, oh, what's this equals NL? You're not allowed to use that. If you're a licensed report viewer, go tell your report designer that auto plus hide plus values or auto plus hide plus lock must be in cell A1 of at least one worksheet of this report, and that the report must be saved in report mode, right? They don't have access to design mode, so if you send it to them in design mode, it's gonna freak out. So, that's typically the last thing I do, just to make sure that when I run it, I don't run into any error messages, right? I don't wanna send this to my boss, and she tries to run it, and suddenly a big error message comes up, and I just look bad. So, I wanna make sure that it's working properly.
So it has to have the plus values or plus lock in order for them to be able to refresh it?
For them to even be able to view it if they're not a designer.
Oh, okay.
I mean, view it, refresh it, any of that. As soon as they open it up, it's gonna freak out if it's, it doesn't have that information. Yep. So those are the last steps that we would go through in order to create these reports. I would add my plus values or plus lock. On my options page, I would add my auto plus hide sheet. Add my option title value lookup. And you asked about, well, could we give them a hint as to what it's supposed to look like? There's two ways you can do that. One, pre-populate it with some sort of date value, so they can see it's a date.
To get back there, we just hit unhide, right?
What's that?
To get our option page to show again, we just hit unhide.
Yeah, you just go back into design.
Oh, design is.
Yeah, I'm back in design mode here. Yeah, it'll unhide it while we're in there. So there's two ways I typically tell people to deal with dates. The first is pre-populate it with a date range so they can see, oh, I'm supposed to do date ... date. But another way you could do it is to add a keyword of tooltip. In the tooltip, let's say I want to say, okay, well, I'm going to show you the formatting for this. I can say input date as, and it would be month / day / year .. month / day / year . So this is the tip that I want to give to that viewer. When I run the report, if I hover over that, it gives them that little tip that pops up. Input date as. It goes away after a while. You move back, it pops back up. So it just gives them a clue as to what it is that they should be doing there. So that's our tooltip. That's one of those keywords that it's not in the book, but it is one of our keywords. It's not used very often. But most of the time I see it as when it's a specific way of doing. You have to input it this way or that way, just as a way to give the viewer an idea of what they're supposed to do. So at this point, once I run the report, I save it, I'm good to go, I can give it off to whoever I want. Everything is now officially done with this. I broke that cell dependency, that cross-sheet dependency, by using my ND eval. I added all my keywords. This will run more efficiently than what we had created just an hour ago. So, we are going to jump back, and we'll do our exercises.
So when you save a report, you should always save it in the report mode?
I save it two versions. I save one for the client in report mode, and I send that to them typically. Unless I know a designer is going to have access to it. Then I save two versions and I send them both versions. Here's one in report mode, here's one in design mode, in case one gets corrupted. And I do the same thing for myself. I save one in report mode, one in design mode. And I keep them locally on my computer and locally, and then on our server as well. So I have backup copies if anything ever gets corrupted, or the client breaks the report, or something happens and somebody just deletes it. I have a backup copy and I don't have to recreate it for them. So, yeah, I usually keep two copies, one in report, one in design. Because if I'm stuck in report mode, bless you, and for some reason it gets corrupted while it's in report mode, I want to make sure that I have the original somewhere. Okay. So here's our report options. Options, title, value, lookup. We try to break those cross-sheet references, or they call it off-sheet references. I always call it a cross-sheet. And here's kind of an example of our multi-level. So salesperson, with the customers, and then the transactions that occurred for that customer. We're not going to go into that far, into that depth. We are going to stick to just general grouping report. So on page 416, we're actually going to do 2 examples because we have enough time. Let's do example 2 and example 3. I'm going to have you guys work on those. So what we need to do is create our mock-up, determine our tables and our filters. Be aware that there's hints. Right? At the end of exercise 2, there's 2 hints. At the end of exercise 3, there's about 7 hints. And I'll come around and help you as you possibly get stuck. But we want to create the reports, and if you really want to get ambitious, create your options page, do your NP eval, do all that stuff, get it ready for final distribution. But let's actually just work on getting the reports working, and we'll go from there. Because all the cleanup is just cleanup work at the end.